Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping right into something that feels, well, a bit backwards, honestly. This paradox of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
We spend so much energy trying to make things easier, smoother, more comfortable.
Right. It seems like the goal.
But what if, and this is the core idea here, what if that very comfort is actually stopping us, holding us back from building like real strength?
That's a huge question. And the source material we're digging into today, it's this really compelling story, kind of parable that just nails this paradox perfectly.
Yeah, it's framed as potentially life-changing, which is a bold claim, but it definitely makes you think. It pushes you to reconsider what help or support even means.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive really is to pull out the key lessons from this story about two neighbors, two gardens.
Right, and figure out why the argument is that struggle isn't just like part of growth, but maybe the essential ingredient for being resilient.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. Quiet neighborhood. Two folks, both really into their gardens. We've got a retired teacher and an insurance agent.
Both dedicated, putting in the effort, but their whole philosophy completely different.
Totally opposite ends of the
But
spectrum.
let's start with the insurance agent. You can kind of picture this, right?
Yeah.
The source calls his method total pampering.
Yeah, not just gardening, but like optimizing.
Exactly. He's got the richest soil, gives them a lot of water, the transcript says, and just constant exhaustive care. Why? Because he wanted his garden to look the best, period.
And you see that, don't you? That drive to just remove any hardship, any struggle from the equation in gardening, parenting, managing a team, maybe.
Oh, for sure.
And hey, for a while it worked, visually anyway. His garden was lush, green, super impressive. Anyone walking by would think, wow, that's the way to do it.
Okay, so hold that image. Now let's switch gears. The retired teacher, totally different vibe. If the agent was the, I don't know, helicopter gardener,
Yeah, good one.
the teacher was more hands-off, minimalist maybe. His idea was simpler, necessity. That's what builds strength.
Right. So he waters his plants, but only, and this is key, only as much as they needed.
No pampering, no extra fuss.
None of that. And the result, well, his plants were fine, healthy, steady,
Yeah.
but they didn't have that that wow factor, not as full looking as the neighbors.
Right, so you've got this immediate contrast set up. What you see on the surface, that lushness versus what might be going on underneath, the hidden structure.
Exactly. The outward appearance versus the inner resilience. And that's where the story really takes its turn. Because, life isn't always sunny skies.
No kidding. So the source introduces the test, the stress test for these two gardens. A big storm rolls into town, suddenly.
Yeah. And not just a little rain. We're talking heavy downpours, strong winds, the kind of thing that really shakes things up.
Yeah, it's the perfect metaphor, isn't it? That unexpected crisis could be a project collapsing at work, a sudden market shift, a personal challenge. It hits everyone eventually.
It really does. So the storm passes.
Yeah.
Next morning, everyone comes out to see the damage.
And the insurance agent, he rushes out expecting maybe a little mess, but
Total shock. The source says most of his plants had been uprooted and destroyed. Despite all that care, all that pampering, gone.
just flattened. Because they had no defense, really. Nothing deep holding them down.
And then you look over at the teacher's garden, the one that looked just okay the day before.
Standing tall. The source says his plants were barely shaken by the storm.
Wow, it's such a stark visual. The pampered perfection. Destroyed. The steady, maybe less showy garden. It endured. It really hammers home that the easy path.
Well, can lead to fragility.
So the agent naturally is just baffled, confused, probably pretty frustrated too. He goes over to the teacher.
And asks the obvious question, right?
Yep, the million-dollar question. Look, I gave my plants way more water, richer soil, constant attention, more than you ever did. Why did mine get wiped out while yours are fine?
And based on his inputs, it's a fair question. He put in more care, by his definition.
But the teacher's answer, this is where it shifts from just gardening advice to something bigger, a life principle.
This is the core revelation, isn't it? Let's break that down. Okay, so the teacher explains, basically, that because the agent gave his plants everything they could possibly need, right there on the surface,
Made it super easy for them.
those plants never learned to grow strong roots. Why would they? Everything they needed was right there. Shallow effort, shallow roots.
Right, whereas the teacher's plants, they weren't getting everything handed to them. He made sure the water wasn't too easy to get.
So they had to search deeper for water. They had to work for it.
And that search, that struggle, that necessity, that is what forced them to grow deep, strong roots. roots that could actually anchor them when the storm hit.
Hmm.
It wasn't a choice, it was survival.
So taking that core idea, that struggle builds the necessary structure. The source material just lays it out flat. It says, the truth is comfort never creates strength.
Boom. That's the takeaway right there. It's blunt. Comfort feels good, but it doesn't build the capacity to withstand hardship.
So connecting that dot, real success, the kind that lasts, the kind that isn't just blown away by the first challenge.
Yeah.
It doesn't grow in those comfortable, pampered environments. It grows, and I love this phrase from the source, in the soil of struggle.
A soil of struggle. That's powerful. It implies struggle isn't the enemy of growth, it's the medium for growth. Comfort doesn't just slow growth down, it actively makes you weaker by removing the need to adapt.
That completely flips how we usually think about problems or difficulties, doesn't it? We see them as setbacks, things to avoid.
Right, like a failure in the system if things get hard.
But if struggle is actually the mechanism for getting stronger, then avoiding hard things is like actively choosing to keep your roots shallow. You're kind of sabotaging your own resilience.
Exactly. So building those deep roots, metaphorically speaking, it's not passive. It's an active choice. It means deliberately stepping outside that comfort zone.
Pushing yourself, facing the friction instead of finding the smoothest path.
And the text is pretty clear about the downside of not doing that. If you're always looking for the shortcut, always expecting things to be easy,
Expecting life to hand us everything, as it says.
then you become like those pampered plants. You might look successful for a bit, maybe, but the first storm that comes along, it'll knock you right over because there's no depth there.
So how do we apply this? How do we make sure we're not accidentally coddling ourselves into weakness, especially in, say, learning or our careers?
That's the critical question, isn't it? It's
Right.
about finding that productive discomfort, not just pointless stress, but challenges that force growth.
Yeah, the source isn't saying, make everything needlessly painful.
No, not.
It's saying choose the path that requires discipline, the one that builds capacity. Think about learning a tough new skill, maybe a piece of software for work.
Okay.
The comfortable route. Watch a bunch of videos, maybe ask a colleague to just do the hard part for you. Wait for the easy answer.
Sure, less friction there.
But the path of struggle, that's diving in yourself. Trying, failing, debugging that code, wrestling with the problem until you figure it out, maybe after a few tries. That necessity forces you to learn deeply.
Yes, that's the mechanism. When you're forced to solve it, when there isn't an easy out, your brain has to build new pathways. You don't just learn the answer, you build the ability to find answers under pressure. That's the root structure.
And the source gives us pointers on how to cultivate this. It says we need to consistently choose discipline over laziness.
Discipline is inherently uncomfortable sometimes.
And choose persistence over giving up, sticking with it when it's hard.
Absolutely. And it gets even more specific. It says these deep roots we want, they are built by pain, effort, and sacrifice.
Okay, pain sounds intense, but maybe it just means the discomfort of pushing your limits, the mental effort of focusing, the sting when something doesn't work out the first time.
I think that's exactly it. It's not about physical pain, usually. It's the pain of stretching yourself, of doing the work, of delaying gratification, the sacrifice of immediate ease for long-term strength.
Think about failure then. If a plant hits dry soil near the surface, it doesn't just quit. It has to push its roots deeper to find water.
Right. Biological imperative.
So if we hit a setback, maybe a project fails, or we don't get the promotion, if our first instinct is just retreat back to what's easy and safe.
You stop the root growth, right?
Exactly. But if you analyze it, figure out what went wrong, put in the effort to learn from it, and try again, maybe differently, that struggle itself is what builds you up. It reinforces you.
It completely reframes those tough times, those hardships, those failures, maybe even pulling an all-nighter to meet a deadline or solve a complex problem.
Yeah.
They're not just annoying interruptions. The source suggests they are the very things shaping your strength. They are your roots searching deeper because they have to.
This really pushes back against our modern obsession with instant results and frictionless experiences. Efficiency is good, sure, but maybe optimizing everything for ease is actually dangerous.
Especially when it comes to learning or building character or developing real expertise. If you always take the easy option, the pre-digested summary, the shortcut.
You might look like the agent's garden for a while.
Yeah.
Impressive on the surface.
But you're fundamentally unprepared for any real challenge. You've traded resilience for convenience. And that's a bad trade long term.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. The big message from this deep dive, pulled from that gardening story, it seems to be that you can't have real progress without some struggle. You can't have real, lasting success without effort, without pushing through difficulty.
Yeah, that strength we want, that ability to weather the storms, it's not found where things are easy. It's built in that deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable search for what's necessary, like those roots reaching for water.
It's about being intentional then, choosing the discomfort that leads to growth.
hmm And if avoiding the hard stuff actively weakens you, stops those deep roots from forming, it makes you pause and think, doesn't it, about
Yeah.
your own life?
Definitely. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening, drawing from this, if resilience really is born in that soil of struggle,
Yeah.
ask yourself this. Where in your life right now, maybe your job, your learning, a personal goal, have things gotten maybe a little too comfortable? What's one uncomfortable step, one choice that requires real effort that you could take this week to deliberately force your own roots to dig just a little bit deeper?